I'm Sarah, I'm 32 years old, and I'm about to tell you something I've never said out loud before. The night I called my dad from a gas station bathroom in Phoenix, begging him to let me come home, he said no, not because there wasn't room, not because he couldn't afford it, but because his girlfriend Linda was sleeping in my childhood bedroom, and moving her out would be too complicated. I was holding a phone with a cracked screen, my last $20 in my pocket, and I could hear her laughing in the background. The same laugh I'd been hearing for 3 years, ever since Mom died, and Dad decided he needed someone new to fill the empty spaces in our house. "Sarah, honey, you're 28 years old," he said. Like my age somehow made sleeping in my car more acceptable. "You need to figure this out on your own." That was 4 years ago, and I'm only now understanding that the betrayal didn't start that night. It started much earlier, with smaller cuts that I didn't even notice were bleeding. Let me back up. My mom died when I was 25. Cancer, the kind that takes everything slowly, piece by piece, until there's nothing left but the shell of who someone used to be. Dad and I took care of her together for 2 years. We took shifts, we held her hands. We pretended everything was going to be okay, even when we both knew it wasn't. The day after her funeral, I found Dad sitting in the kitchen at 6 in the morning, still wearing his black suit from the service. He looked at me with these hollow eyes and said, "I don't know how to do this without her." I moved back home. Not permanently, I told myself, just until he got back on his feet. I had my own apartment across town, my own life, but Dad needed me, and honestly, I needed him too. Grief is this terrible, isolating thing, and sharing it with someone who loved her as much as I did made it bearable. For 6 months, we figured it out together. We learned how to cook the meals Mom used to make. We kept her garden alive. We talked about her every day, sharing memories like they were medicine. It was the closest Dad and I had ever been. Then he met Linda at a grief support group. I should have seen the red flags immediately, the way she showed up to family dinners uninvited, how she rearranged Mom's kitchen without asking, the way she'd interrupt when Dad and I were talking about Mom, changing the subject like our memories were somehow inappropriate. "You two need to stop living in the past," she said one evening, 3 months after Dad started bringing her around. She was washing dishes in Mom's apron, using Mom's favorite coffee mug like it belonged to her. "It's not healthy." Dad didn't say anything. He just nodded like she was some kind of expert on our family's healing process. That's when I knew I needed to move back to my apartment. The house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like I was intruding on something that used to be mine. But I still came by every Sunday for dinner, still called Dad twice a week, still brought flowers for Mom's grave on her birthday and the anniversary of her death. I was trying to maintain some connection to the family we used to be. Linda hated it. She never said it directly, but I could feel her resentment every time I walked through the door. The way she'd sigh when I hugged Dad. How she'd make comments about me dropping by unannounced, even when Dad had invited me. The subtle ways she'd exclude me from conversations about their future plans. "Sarah still has a key," I heard her tell Dad one Sunday when I was in the bathroom. "Don't you think that's a little weird? She doesn't live here anymore." A year after Mom died, Dad asked for my key back. He said Linda felt uncomfortable, knowing I could come and go as I pleased. Like I was some kind of threat instead of his daughter, who had spent 2 years helping him care for the woman he claimed to love. I gave him the key. What choice did I have? But something broke between us that day. Some invisible thread that had connected us through Mom's death, through our shared grief, through 26 years of being father and daughter. The Sunday dinners became monthly, then every few months, then only on holidays. And even then, I felt like a guest in the house where I grew up. 2 years after Mom died, Dad and Linda got married, a small ceremony at the courthouse. I found out about it on Facebook, not from Dad. Not from a phone call or a text, from a photo Linda posted of them signing papers, her wearing Mom's pearl earrings. When I called Dad that night, crying, asking why he didn't tell me, he said, "We wanted to keep it simple. You know how you get about these things. How I get about these things. Like my feelings about my father remarrying were some kind of character flaw, instead of a normal human response to watching a stranger erase my mother's memory." That's when my life started falling apart. Not all at once, not in any way I could point to and say, "This is Linda's fault," but slowly, like a foundation cracking under pressure you can't see. I lost my job 6 months later. Budget cuts, they said. But I knew I hadn't been performing well. I was distracted, depressed, angry all the time. I'd been working as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm, and creativity is hard when you're drowning in grief that no one wants to acknowledge. I couldn't afford my apartment on unemployment. I applied for dozens of jobs, but the economy was terrible, and I was competing with people who hadn't spent 2 years watching their mother die, and another year watching their father forget she ever existed. I moved in with my friend Jessica for a few months, sleeping on her couch, contributing what I could to groceries and utilities. But Jessica was getting married, and her fiancé made it clear that my presence was temporary. I never asked Dad for help during this time. I was too proud, too hurt, too afraid he'd say no. But I also thought he'd notice. I thought he'd call and ask how I was doing, offer support, be the father he used to be before Linda convinced him that caring about his daughter was somehow disloyal to his new wife. He didn't call, not once. 8 months after losing my job, I was living in my car. A 2003 Honda Civic with a broken air conditioner and a passenger door that wouldn't lock. I parked in different places every night, trying to avoid the police, trying to stay safe, trying to maintain some dignity while my life crumbled around me. I showered at the gym until my membership expired. Then I used public restrooms and baby wipes. I ate dollar menu items and whatever free food I could find. I applied for jobs from the library, using their computers and printers, trying to look professional in interviews while living out of a backpack. The worst part wasn't the physical discomfort. It was the shame, the isolation, the way I disappeared from my own life so completely that no one seemed to notice I was gone. That's when I made the call. The night I finally swallowed my pride and asked my father for help. I was parked behind a gas station in Phoenix, where I'd driven hoping to find work, hoping to start over somewhere new. It was July, and the desert heat was unbearable even after sunset. I hadn't eaten a real meal in 3 days. I was scared and desperate and completely out of options. "Dad," I said, when he answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need help. I'm homeless. I've been living in my car for 2 months, and I don't know what else to do." There was a long pause. I could hear the television in the background, the same evening news program he'd watched with Mom for 20 years. "Oh, Sarah," he said. And for a moment I thought I heard the father I used to know, the one who taught me to ride a bike and helped me with math homework and held me when I cried about boys in high school. "That's terrible. I'm so sorry." "Can I come home?" I asked. "Just temporarily, just until I get back on my feet." Another pause. Longer this time. I heard Linda's voice in the background, though I couldn't make out the words. "The thing is," Dad said, and I knew from his tone that whatever came next would destroy me. "Linda's been using your old room as her office. She's got all her things set up in there. It would be really complicated to move everything." Her office, my childhood bedroom, where I'd slept for 18 years, where Mom used to read me stories and check for monsters under the bed, was now Linda's office. "I could sleep on the couch," I said, hating how desperate I sounded, "or in the basement. I just need somewhere safe to stay." "Sarah, honey, you're 28 years old. You need to figure this out on your own. Linda and I, we're trying to build our life together, and having you here would just complicate things." Complicate things. His homeless daughter would complicate his new life with the woman who was sleeping in my bed, working at my desk, living in the space where I used to exist. "Dad, I'm your daughter," I whispered. But he'd already made his choice. "I can send you a little money," he said. "Maybe enough for a motel room for a few nights. But you can't come home, Sarah. This isn't your home anymore." He hung up, and I sat in that gas station parking lot, holding a dead phone, understanding for the first time that I was truly alone in the world. The money never came. I spent 3 more months living in my car. I finally found work at a call center in Tucson. A terrible job with terrible pay, but enough to rent a studio apartment in a neighborhood where gunshots were more common than laughter. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and it was safe, and it was the beginning of building a life that didn't depend on anyone else. I didn't talk to Dad for 2 years after that phone call. Not on my birthday, not on Christmas, not on the anniversary of Mom's death. I was done trying to maintain a relationship with someone who had chosen a woman he'd known for 3 years over the daughter he'd raised for 28. But silence is its own kind of torture, Because even when someone betrays you completely, even when they choose someone else over you in the most devastating way possible, you still love them. You still remember who they used to be. You still hope they'll realize what they've done and try to make it right. 2 years later, Dad called me. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was at my new job, working as a freelance designer from my apartment. I'd slowly rebuilt my life, piece by piece, without any help from the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. "Sarah," he said, and his voice sounded older, more fragile. "I've been thinking about you. How are you doing?" How was I doing? I was surviving. I was paying my own rent, buying my own food, taking care of myself in all the ways he should have helped me learn instead of abandoning me to figure out alone. "I'm fine," I said, because what else was there to say? "Linda and I are having some problems," he continued, like I was supposed to care about his marriage troubles. "She moved out last week. She took a lot of things, some of your mother's things, mom's things, the jewelry, the photo albums, the little ceramic figurines she collected, the pieces of her that Linda had been slowly claiming as her own for 5 years. I was thinking," Dad said, "maybe you'd like to come visit. Your room is empty now. I mean, it's still set up as an office, but we could change it back. We could change it back, like it was that simple, like 5 years of betrayal and abandonment could be erased by moving some furniture around." "No," I said. It was the first time I'd ever said no to my father about anything important. "I don't think so. Sarah, I know I made some mistakes." "Mistakes?" The word came out sharper than I intended. "Dad, when I was homeless, when I was sleeping in my car and eating out of garbage cans, you chose your girlfriend's comfort over your daughter's safety. That's not a mistake. That's a choice." "I was trying to make Linda happy," he said, like that explained everything. "Marriage is about compromise." "What about being a father?" I asked. "What's that about?" He didn't have an answer for that. We talked for a few more minutes, but it was like speaking different languages. He wanted forgiveness without accountability. He wanted our relationship back, without acknowledging what he'd done to destroy it. He wanted me to pretend that choosing Linda over me was somehow understandable, forgivable, forgotten. But I couldn't forget. I couldn't pretend that the night I called him from that gas station didn't happen. I couldn't act like his rejection didn't nearly kill me, didn't force me to rebuild myself from nothing, didn't teach me that the people who are supposed to love you most can hurt you worst. That was 2 years ago. Dad calls sometimes, usually when he's lonely, usually when whatever woman he's dating at the moment isn't available to fill the silence. I answer sometimes. We talk about safe things, the weather, his job, my work. We never talk about Mom. We never talk about Linda. We never talk about the night he chose a woman's office space over his daughter's life. I've been in therapy for 3 years now, learning to process the grief I never got to finish. Learning to understand that Dad's betrayal says everything about him and nothing about my worth as a person. Learning to build relationships with people who won't abandon me the moment loving me becomes inconvenient. My therapist asked me once what I would say to Dad if I could say anything without consequences. I told her I'd ask him if he ever thinks about that phone call, if he ever wonders what would have happened if he'd said yes, if he ever regrets choosing Linda's comfort over his daughter's survival. But I already know the answer. If he regretted it, really regretted it, he would have apologized by now. He would have acknowledged what he did instead of calling it a mistake. He would have fought for our relationship instead of waiting for me to pretend it never happened. The truth is, some betrayals are too deep to heal. Some choices reveal who people really are underneath all the roles they play. And sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need protection from. I have a good life now. Not the life I planned, not the life I would have chosen, but a life I built with my own hands after everything fell apart. I have friends who show up when I need them. I have work that fulfills me. I have a small apartment that's entirely mine, where no one can make me feel unwelcome or unwanted. But I still drive past my childhood home sometimes. Linda's car is never in the driveway anymore, but there are other cars now. Other women who will eventually sleep in my old room, use my mother's kitchen, convince my father that his daughter is somehow a threat to his happiness, and I think about that night in the gas station. How different my life might have been if he'd said yes, if he'd chosen me, just once, over someone else's comfort, if he'd remembered that being a father doesn't end when your child turns 18, doesn't stop when you find someone new to love. But maybe that's the lesson I needed to learn. That love isn't something you can count on from other people, even the people who are supposed to love you most. That the only person you can truly depend on is yourself. That sometimes the greatest act of self-love is walking away from people who can't love you the way you deserve. I'm 32 years old now, and I finally understand something that took me years to accept. My father didn't just let his girlfriend sleep in my old room while I was homeless. He let her sleep in the space where his love for me used to live. And once that space is given to someone else, once that choice is made, there's no changing it back. The room might be empty now, but so is the place in his heart where I used to matter most. And that's not something you can fix by rearranging furniture.